All right, here I am with my buddy OJ. I'm going to showing him some zero DTEs on the SPX. So ready, OJ? All right, before you got here, I was already getting started here. So what I've done is I started off with Tammy Chambliss, got the signal for selling the puts, and I just got the signal for selling the calls. So as I look here, I collected a buck 25 on the 34.75 puts, which are I try to sell right at the 10 delta. So I just put the stop loss on the call side. So I'm going to take a buck 25, multiplied it by three. It's 375. I may talk fast here, but we're recording it so you can kind of watch it later. So I'm going to
Absolutely.
go down here to the SPX and let me go ahead and put my stop losses on here. So just in case something happens, I wouldn't get killed. So I'm going to put a stop loss of 380 and I'm going to give it a 410. I like a 30 cent difference here from where this is a trigger. 380 is a trigger. So what happens is people can't see my close signal on their list. People sometimes claim that sometimes market makers may manipulate it when they can actually see your trade. So if this went up to 380, it would hit a trigger, and then my max to get out would be 410. So I'm just going to go ahead and put that on. So sorry I interrupted you there. What were you going to say?
Oh, nothing. I was just listening. I'm good.
Yeah. So since I've hidden my numbers, I can't really see kind of this one went off. I did one contract, one put, $1.25. So I'm going to do the same thing in there and put a close order, create closing order. I'm going to do a stop limit and put a stop limit on it 3 times max loss, 375, and then actually 380 because I round up to the nearest 10 cents and 410. So once I get all these on, then I can kind of focus on kind of listening to you, and then I'll put on the call side. So before the market opens, I basically go through and create kind of a template for how many contracts I want to do in each of these accounts. And it's based upon how much buying power I currently have in them at the time. So I'm going to create, let's see, this one fired off. So I'll put this close order on at 380. And 410. And then what I'll do is I'll walk you through the entire process of selling kind of the calls now. So let's take a look at SPX and see kind of what it's trading at. And I tend to not be a technical trader, but I do look kind of at the, I know a little bit about it. So, if I sit here and I set some drawings here, it looks like just visually there's some support here at 3501. And it looks like there's a little bit of resistance up here. So as you see, it's kind of taken some green candles here. And this is called the MACD. And I don't know how familiar you are with it. I don't tend to really rely on it, but it looks like, if this pops up through it, I might wait for a green candle or so before I sell calls. So granted, we just kind of went through a bunch of stuff there. But do you have questions yet?
Not yet.
Okay. All right. So what I do then is after I kind of got my stop losses, you can kind of see the mark here and you can tell if something's getting close to hitting your stop. And kind of what I emailed you over this weekend is I ran some numbers on this, and it looks like I'm experiencing about a 72% success rate. And, I ran some numbers, did some math. I'd love to share my math with you since you kind of tend to self-identify as a numbers guy. and have you kind of check it out. But my estimation is that I can get about a 30% return from the strategy. And so now that I feel a little more confident, I think I had 186 occurrences between, and that's just in one account. So this is
Yeah.
the main account that I trade the most in is my IRA, since I've got a little bit more buying power in there. So I just haven't measured the other occurrences, but it kind of gives me some confidence to ramp up the number of contracts now that I've got, measured 186 occurrences at a 72% success rate. So I like to kind of test the strategy out a little bit smaller before I ramp it up.
No, I totally understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, see how it looks like it's got some green candles. It's bounced off there. So I kind of feel comfortable more looking at the calls now. So let's kind of take a look at what the calls would be. So what I do here is there's a delta here on the calls, and it's 0 days to expiration. So this expires August 31st. So I've gone into that options to look at the options here. So let's see what the 8 delta. So here's a 9 delta. So I try to get closest to the 10. So it's a little bit skewed here. You don't have to go 50 points wide like you don't do in the call, so it doesn't take up quite as much buying power. So if I click on this guy in terms of sell, and if you're familiar with Thinkorswim, you hold down the control button, and then let's see what the nickel wide 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. Looks like I might be able to get a nickel wide wing here. So I'll buy that wing. So that would take about $4,000 in buying power per contract. So in this account, I'm going to bump this up to about 20 contracts. This is the bigger one that I sell. And I'm going to pop that up to like 75 cents just to kind of see if I can get it to fire off here. And we'll see what that does. So then I'm going to copy that same trade and put it in a few other accounts. And let's see how many I traded there. I believe it was 15. So I'll bump that down to 15. Looks like it's already, I'll put that at 80 cents here. I don't know why I rejected it. Maybe I don't have enough buying power in that one. So let's see. Let's just do 10. Rejected it again. Maybe it's a little too wide. Let's see what happened. I think I put more contracts on the put than I really. So this is kind of the process I go through. And as you see, I trade about 15 to 20 accounts. So it kind of can get, and since I'm hiding the account numbers because I'm recording it, it kind of makes it a little bit more kind of challenging to pull off, right?
Yeah. So how many contracts are you trying to sell for the calls?
Well, the call side approximately takes about 4,000, 3 to 4,000 in buying power, depending upon how far. If you go 30 points wide, it takes 3,000 in buying power. If you go 40 points wide, it takes 4,000 in buying power. So typically there's a little more skew on the put side, which basically means I think the fear in this market is more to the downside than it is to the upside, because puts tends to be insurance against people who are afraid of the market going down.
Yeah.
So that's the reason I have to kind of go 50 points wide on the put side, because those wings that I'm buying tend to hold their value. Maybe 6 months ago, 50 points wide, I could have bought a wing for a nickel, and now those wings are costing me maybe 10 to 15 cents. So the further out you go are still holding those values because somebody's out there buying insurance against a big market downturn. So fear. And I don't know, the fear index, are you familiar with VIX?
Yeah, the volatility index. Yeah.
Yeah, volatility index. So as you kind of look at VIX today, it's up 9.54%. So, which is pretty decent move. I mean, if you look over at it, over the last year, it popped up, to 82, back in March when the peak of the fear of COVID was kind of going on. So when fear is high, you get paid a little bit more for options premiums are higher. So this kind of just gives you a sampling of what I do every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. The thought leaders out there in this trade really are Tammy Chambliss, and I would consider David Sun. I tend to adhere more to Tammy's trading style. She's developing some signals by a guy by the name of Pong, who's developing some signals to tell you whether or not to do just puts or just calls, or to do both. And on Thursday, we're having a call. A group of beta testers are going to kind of test it out to see whether or not we like it. But if you had a few signals about what to trade, it might help me with that 72% success rate. Maybe I could up that to say like an 80% success rate with some signals. So we'll kind of see how that goes. So as you watch this video and watch other videos and you have other questions, hit me up with that. Meanwhile, I'm going to just monitor some of these calls and do what I call price discovery, which is kind of you go down a nickel at a time until you get a taker. I tell a lot of people it's kind of like bidding on something on eBay, right? You kind of put your price in and you keep adjusting your price until there is a taker. So like right now, looking at and my calls have not, looks like my calls just executed. So let's see what we got for them. Looks like the Cosmic is giving it to you just so you can see it on the video. Look like I got 82 cents for those 35.25 calls. So if I take 82 cents and multiply it by 3, it's 246. So what I'm going to do is round up to 250 on those calls. And then what I'm going to do is create a closing order and select stop limit. I'm going to put my bottom number at 250 and my top number at 280. And so those calls will be set. So those are stop limit. So what I'm saying is a 72% success rate, which basically means, a 72% success rate, which basically means a 28% of the time I get stopped out. In order to make this profitable, I only need to have 2 winners for every 1 loser. So what I'll do is after I get all these to execute in the stop limit, I kind of keep a look at this mark to kind of see how close it's getting to my stops. Now, the jury's out on whether or not if you get stopped out to put them on immediately. There are people out there that basically say, hey, if I get stopped out, I'm done. I'm done. I'm not putting on another one, right? That, to me, that's kind of like the poker player that says, hey, if I'm not running good, I drove all the way to WinStar and I sat down to play poker and I got, two outed, the first two hands. I thought, man, this is not my day. And I just cashed out. It's like,
Yeah.
to me, it's people who kind of tend to be superstitious. I tend to be more of a math guy. The only time I leave a game is if the game's bad or if I'm playing bad, right? Or if I'm not in a good mood. And I don't tend to think that the past is necessarily a predictor of the future. So I tend to kind of get back in there unless it's late in the day where I don't feel like I have enough time to recover. What is late in the day? I don't know. After lunch, if I get stomped down, I probably won't put on another. So you might ask, if you get stopped out, then I tend to look and see what, if I wait for the chart to settle down a little bit, and then I look for another 8 to 10 delta put. Now, since I already have the long side on, I don't have to put the long side on again. I just sell the short side again. So
Gotcha.
it kind of took me a while to kind of get this down to like I like it. And some people say, well, how do you do this in 15 or 20 accounts? And I say, hey, I used to multi-table, play 10 games of poker at a time. So I do think the skills of doing this directly translate to an option trader. And that's why I'm always excited to talk to my fellow poker players, because I think some of the same skills apply. The skills of making quick decisions, the skills of kind of having incomplete information, basically the math of the game, and playing a game that can be beaten. And so all those are criteria that make this an interesting trade, and in general, options trading for me.
I think you're right. I think the the poker community kind of oddly has gone from like financial trend to the next financial trend, as in, they started, fantasy sports a couple years ago. They were the first ones to get into fantasy sports and do very well at it. And then they got bored of that, and then they went to Bitcoin and altcoin. Then they were trading that for quite a while until that settled out, and then now the poker players are now in options trading. And so I feel like their poker players are always ahead of like the next money making phenomenon in society. Like they're already ahead of the general public. So when I heard some of my poker friends doing options, I'm like, you know what, I did options 10 years ago, and I was like, it was a little bit risky, and
sure.
Of course, as a beginning investor, I took a hit. So I was like, that, I'm just going to buy equities and hold, and play a safe long game. But then now I start getting back into it. And of course, when I get back into it, we're in this major bull market to where almost no one can miss, right?
Yeah.
But then
any monkey throwing a dart could be successful if they're betting on the bullish side.
Yeah, and me being me, I'm playing the contrarian sometimes, more often than not. So it's been like an even keel year for me. So, and I'd like to learn about options again and learn more. Because right now, just, the average Robinhood trader, while looking at some of my friends and even my brother, they're just, they're hitting like crazy. It's just, yeah. And I think, Walmart kind of set the blueprint at earnings last week when they explained why everything was going crazy. And, I didn't think about it in terms of society and how much money was being pumped into society, to where the Q2 numbers were amazing. Everyone's was spending, and there's so much money out there, so much capital, and some of it's flowing back in the market. So
Well, OJ, I've heard the statistic, and I can't quite validate it, but 90% of all option traders lose 90% of their account in the first 90 days.
My first time, yeah, the stake that I put up, I can validate that number with my personal experience.
And I think it's because they do it like they're playing in the casino, and they step up to blackjack or they step up to the roulette wheel, and it's stacked against them. So they're making low probability trades. So it's just my philosophy to at least teach people how to set up high probability trades. So you're more like the casino rather than the gambler, because think about it. All these people that are losing that money in the first 90 days, somebody's taking the other side of their trade.
You're right.
And it's the smart money, it's the casino, it's the people that know high probabilities. And so they're going like the bookie, they're going, yeah, I'll take your parlay, just because they realize it's such a bad bet.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think, also, with poker players having always multiple screens and multiple accounts, I have multiple screens looking at different graphs and different websites and news feeds and so on and so forth, that the skill set does translate. It
Yep.
can very well. So
I totally agree.
yeah.
Hey, buddy, I think I'll go ahead and, I'm going to stop the recording, and thank you guys for watching.